So with the 17-time WWE Champion John Cena, will he go down as the greatest superstar in WWE history? Or will he just go down simply as being overrated? So with John Cena, it's very much, he could be that kind of Marmite character. People either love him or they hate him. There's the people that think great talent, great performer overall, one of the top guys in the industry. And then there's the people who very much are John Cena haters, and they hate what's been the John Cena good guy character for about 20-21 years in WWE. And I'm going to go through stuff throughout with Cena, his whole career, and get into this stuff and discuss whether Cena is going to go down as one of the best, or is he just simply overrated. Let's go back to kind of the beginning, where you have Cena come into WWE in 2002 time. So Cena previously had been in the OVW developmental system. He had done this prototype gimmick, half man, half machine, something like that. Kind of just, I suppose, a bit of a silly gimmick, but it was, a foot in the door, let's say. So Cena debuts in mid-2002 time, and he has debuts against Kurt Angle. And you think, wow, that's a great way to debut, to bring in this guy who no one really knows, and he's going to face Kurt Angle in his debut match, give him a run for his money. He comes up short, but it was very much, there was no shame. I think Kurt Angle wins via roll-up or something like that. And Kurt Angle has said later on in interviews that he tried to blow up John Cena, but it just didn't happen, didn't work. Cena was very much on point. And yeah, that was an interesting time. With this is like the ruthless aggression era. Vince McMahon had cut like a promo when all the talent was in the ring and saying he wanted people to show ruthless aggression. And then maybe that might have been that week on the SmackDown. The week after, Cena comes out, and when Kurt Angle does the thing about what's the one quality you possess, I think so you can go toe to toe with me, and then he says ruthless aggression, and he slaps the piss out of him. Quite interesting that Vince Russo has talked about this before, where he said that he was consultant for WWE at the time, and the idea was that he wanted Cena to debut right away and get in the face of Vince McMahon. So I just wonder if maybe they used part of his plan, and that was when you had Vince McMahon doing the whole ruthless aggression thing, and then Cena off the back of that saying he had ruthless aggression. I don't know, maybe plans changed when Russo left, I don't know, or maybe they just used part of his plan. But, it was a foot in the door, but at that point, yeah, he has this potential, but Cena at that point is green. And it was just him coming out, generic trunks, generic music, and it didn't resonate with fans. And even though he had a great showing against Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho put him over at Vengeance, it wasn't enough to get the ball rolling with Cena. Just this, kind of, he had no gimmick. What was his gimmick? I think John Cena used to joke about backstage that, in reference to how he had no gimmick, he was just I'm the crazy roll-up guy, because he never even had a finish. You'd always roll people up for a win. But everything changed. Everything changed when they had a tour in the UK, and John Cena's doing these raps, freestyle-style raps at the back of the bus with guys like Rikishi and Rey Mysterio. The creative team are at the front. They hear what's going on at the back. And that really is what changed the life, the career of John Cena. And Stephanie McMahon was very impressed with this. And this is when they were like, oh shit, we've got to do something about this. And then Cena goes on to do the rapping gimmick, and that changes everything. And that was the thing. That was the gimmick. The Dr. Thuganomics gimmick is what won fans over. That's what made me think, wow, this guy is so cool. He's creative. These raps, they're funny. And okay, the guy's a heel, but still, he was just very entertaining. It was a great time. That period, I think, is kind of underrated, that period where you go back to Cena from the time where he's kind of in that feud with Brock Lesnar in 2003, up until that point where he's in a feud with Angle, and they're doing some good back and forths on the mic, and the freestyle rap, and Angle's coming out, and he's imitating Cena and all this. It was quite a good feud that they had just before, he ends up turning face. That was quite a good period in time. There are a lot of people that would have been John Cena fans, especially kids my age. He was a cool guy. It's you had Orton and John Cena. Those were your two guys, man. But things did change when Cena... Well, I mean, initially, even when Cena turned babyface and he's still doing the gimmick, it was fine. It was okay. But then things were going to change once Cena, was going to become the big cash cow for WWE, and he got that position as the top guy. It's interesting because it was almost like Batista was going to be the main man, right? Batista after he beat Triple H, at WrestleMania, and that was the main event, But then kind of like Cena Batista changed positions, and after Cena beat JBL at WrestleMania 21. Cena then goes to Raw, Batista goes to SmackDown, and most people would say Raw was the the main show at that time, and Cena then becomes the main man. And then gradually things just started to kind of change, and the crowd reactions, people weren't taking to him as much. And I think it all kind of started around that time with the feud with Jericho. And I think it was the SummerSlam pay-per-view. And that's when that was kind of the start of the kind of, the Let's Go Cena Sucks time. That's when those chants started. And then it just kind of stayed with people. It was like, then it was, Cena's getting booed against Kurt Angle, and no matter how much they wanted to have Kurt be the heel, he cheats to win. He's got Daivari in his corner, who people will just boo naturally. I mean, he's a foreigner. Like, it wasn't enough, though. People were still cheating Angle over Cena. And yeah, it was just a time when I look back at wrestling, I think, wow, it wasn't the most enjoyable period of time. That year, 2005, wasn't great. You know what I mean? It just seemed like the baby faces were always going over. Not many heels had heat. It just wasn't an enjoyable time in wrestling, for the most part, really. But then it's still John Cena. It's Super Cena. But then he has the match, or should I say, no, he loses the belt to Edge. And the ratings really picked up, you know what I mean? The ratings when Edge was champion, and even though it was like only 4 weeks, the ratings did go up. But they were set in their ways, WWE, of them having that big pay-per-view match with John Cena and Triple H at WrestleMania 22. And they have the match. Cena wins the belt back against Edge at Royal Rumble. And you know what I mean? It wasn't a great match. But then again, the fans are booing the shit out of John Cena. That was the problem. The fans still weren't taking to John Cena. He wins, but and then again it gets even worse, because then it's the one night, then it goes to one night stand, that ECW one night stand, and it's the classic. You remember the big sign, if Cena wins, we riot, and again, very hostile crowd. I look back on that match, and that was entertaining, but it was the crowd that made that what it was, really. You got the boo spots and all that. You got the fans really hostile at the front row and throughout the whole crowd, really. And yeah, the fans just weren't taken to John Cena at all. That was understandable, being it was an ECW crowd, but just overall, the WWE fans weren't taking to John Cena. And this is the thing, overall, in going from like 2005 to like, let's say 2013, 14 time when Cena was at his peak. I mean, these were like, there was good reason that fans were booing him and weren't taking to him. There was just so many reasons. I think like overexposure was a big thing. Cena always being on top of the card, every pay-per-view, every storyline. Some fans just wanted some fresh faces, but it was always Cena as the centerpiece. You know what I mean? And with that, some people thought that maybe Cena and ended up maybe holding some talent back, some young, promising talent. Maybe there was a case that the Nexus were maybe a prime example, that were victims of Super Cena, and that Cena should have put them over. They should have gone over in that match at SummerSlam, the big tag match. Edge and Jericho were wanting to have Nexus go over, but Cena ultimately had the final say, got in Vince McMahon's ear, and ended up being that Super Cena went over. And to a lot of people, that was just kind of ridiculous. They felt when John Cena's getting like DDT'd on the floor, and he hits, I think Justin Gabriel then puts him in the ring, hits him a 450 splash, but he was still able to come back. At that point, you've been hit by a DDT on the floor, you're very much just out. You're going to be KO'd, you're dead. But it was a case of Superman booking Super Cena. And at just this point, when you were getting into WWE, the PG era in 2009, I think, or maybe 2008, and it was just Cena's character becoming more and more hokey. He wasn't doing the rapping gimmick anymore. And fans were just not... They didn't take to the silly, lame Cena. Well, not the grown guys anyway, the grown men. maybe, his kids liked him. He was maybe great for the kids, but it was just the older demographic weren't taking to, John Cena. He ended up becoming WWE, he became the marketing machine. He was that corporate face, he was brilliant. I mean, imagine the money alone he's making on merchandise. And just all these media appearances he'll be doing. The, the Make-A-Wishes that he'll do. He was the big cash cow for WWE, for Vince McMahon. But it was just that thing sometimes, and maybe when you're getting into that kind of like forced narrative of the hero just being the ultimate good guy in life, maybe there's that thing where there's going to be shades of grey, and that's what worked so well with the Attitude Era, is that a lot of what The Rock did was heelish. A lot of what Stone Cold Steve Austin did was heelish. It was that shades of grey in life. That is kind of life. It's never always as easy as some people are good, some people are bad. That can be the case, and there's some dynamics like that. But most of the time, most people in life, it is a case of shades of grey. But with Cena, it was just that, going back to that like 1980s Hulk Hogan style babyface in many respects. And people just rejected that. I mean, you're going back to now. I mean, you think back to, again, Money in the Bank. It was like that, and again, Money in the Bank with Punk was a bit different because it's his home crowd, Chicago. So fans were going to shit on whoever Punk would have been against for the belt in the main event, whatever. But again, it was just, fans really did gravitate towards Punk because at that point, Punk was more edgy. Punk came in as a little bit of kind of like a bland, typical good guy initially. But all of a sudden now, Punk as a babyface, that's Summer of Punk time. It was great for Punk because Punk could work with a heel with a babyface, because Punk wasn't like a typical babyface at that point. You know what I mean? He was very edgy, and that's what people gravitated towards. I mean, those CM Punk chants throughout the years were loud and clear. He was a star. He was the guy that not just only kids, but adults and the females could gravitate towards. It wasn't quite the same with Cena, because Cena was more pushed down the throats of the fans, and that would piss a large percentage of the fan base off. They want to cheer who they want to cheer, and there should be that level of respect there for the fans. Don't just treat them like marks. Don't kind of come in with that kind of like old school carnival mindset, a carny type mindset, should I say? So there was multiple reasons why Cena got, Cena. You can make the case that, multiple reasons, obviously, that Cena, to many people, will go down as overrated. Cena's match quality could be questionable with some people. I say WrestleMania 22 with Triple H wasn't a good match. WrestleMania 23 with Shawn Michaels wasn't a good match, and it seemed to be there's points throughout that match that Shawn Michaels was getting visibly pissed off at Cena, that he didn't feel that Cena was selling right. I think it was specifically Shawn Michaels was working on like the leg of Cena, and it was almost like he was mouthing to a mid-match. It seemed like kind of uncomfortable, even though you think Shawn's acting like a heel, but he was actually like saying to Cena, start like selling my moves, start selling my shit, and he didn't feel that Cena was selling it right. And then apparently, whether this was part of the plan or not, that Shawn Michaels and John Cena were supposed to shake hands after the match, but Shawn Michaels refused the handshake. He was that unhappy with how the match went. Now, I don't know that for sure, because I think if they were to shake hands, they're doing it in the center of the ring. Like, Cena then approaching Shawn Michaels, like, as he's already walking away up the way to start walking up the rampway to then offer the handshake, and he rejects it. That's very possible that could have been part of the story. But it did seem, when you look back on that and see the clips, and they maybe edited it out on the DVD version, it seems a little bit odd. And it's always kind of uncomfortable to watch. But the thing is, it's not even that with Cena selling. Cena is it's so obvious when he's calling spots in the ring. And to me, the sign of a good professional, if we're being kayfabe and this is a work, you're not making it so blooming obvious that when you're calling out a spot as you're about to, Irish whip your opponent, that is a little bit sloppy. There's parts of his work that are sloppy, and I think because there was always that, criticism of Cena of that he only had the five moves of doom, whatever. That Cena's now like done this thing of like going out of his way to do these moves that his character would never normally do, like a Hurricane Rana, Canadian Destroyer, or whatever, because it's kind of like a fuck you to the haters of like, oh, you say I don't have any moves, now look at me doing all these moves. But just seeing Cena like do moves like drop kicks and stuff like that, that's not your character, dude. Most of the top guys don't have to go off the top rope. When did The Rock ever go off the top rope? You know what I'm saying? So Cena, sometimes there's maybe that element of trying too hard just to fuck with the smart marks, right? But you know what? There's a lot of good things you have to put over about Cena's time overall. I don't want to make it sound like it's all negative. Cena, there was an excellent rivalry there with The Rock. Maybe the matches weren't the best at WrestleMania, but the overall, I think the build-up and everything with that rivalry was pretty good, and there was great back and forth, great mic work by both guys. That was good. I think overall the Punk feud was very good. That was entertaining. He had an excellent feud with Edge, the Rated R Superstar. That was very good, and Edge has said before, it was almost like Cena was Hogan and Edge was Piper. That's an excellent comparison. I think those guys worked really well together, had entertaining matches. They worked SummerSlam, they worked the TLC Unforgiven. They had a lot of good chemistry. They worked well together. AJ Styles, he's going to be wrestling AJ Styles at what's the Crown Jewel in Australia. But the Royal Rumble match, so many people rave about the Royal Rumble match that they had seen in AJ. They work really well together. And that was some excellent match quality right there that he had with AJ Styles. And promo, when it comes to promos, I think some people will maybe say Cena's a hit or a miss, but I think, to be fair, he is a very good talker. He is very captivating. He can tell, he's very good at telling stories, Cena. I don't think you can take that away from him. When it comes to like his personality and selling things and putting things, moments over, his facial expressions, he's very good there, and I really do have to commend him and give him a lot of credit with stuff like that. No doubt Cena is great, and he helps people get better. He's helped probably Punk. That he was the influence for the most part, or part of it, for Punk doing his pipe bomb. You know what I mean? And Cena ain't afraid to go there in promos. Cena will lay into people. Cena basically said Cody is, he said all Cody has is just, an entrance theme that people sing along to, and he's got these catchphrases, or whatever it was. Cena had no problem laying into Cody Rhodes in those promos leading up to Mania, you know what I mean? And Cena will give it, but he can take it as well, in fairness. And then you've got Cena now doing his thing in Hollywood, I feel a certain way about it, but there's no doubt that Cena's making that transition now, and he's going to be seen as probably a bigger star. I don't know if he's going to be quite there on the same level that The Rock was when it comes to success in Hollywood, but he's been doing a lot of top movies, top projects, so hats off to him, I guess. But there's the whole thing about having this reputation for big matches. I suppose it's almost like a Shawn Michaels deal. He was referred to as Mr. WrestleMania. Michael Cole always calls John Cena Big Match John. I hate that. I just don't, for whatever reason, that just is kind of cheesy to me, but whatever, You know what I mean? He's delivered at the big time in these events, whether it be WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble. There's a lot of credit there with Cena. And no doubt Cena has to be in the conversation for being a top guy up there. He's going to be seen maybe as on that level as top guys, like a Rock, like an Austin, like an Undertaker. Roman Reigns is in that conversation too. No doubt for what he contributed and brought to the table. He's a big up there as an all-time great. I might not like this character, but he's definitely will be classed as an all-time great, and I couldn't dispute that. And maybe some people have respected him more over time. Maybe I think for a lot of people, with me, it was always just, I didn't like the gimmick. It didn't mean I didn't like, if it was a better, more entertaining, enjoyable character, I probably would have ended up saying, hey man, nah, I'm with Cena, I'm a Cena fan. But a lot of it has just been a case of the same old shit, man. You know what I mean? A lot of it has been the same old shit. And it is weird when you think about it. I mean, with Cena, did Cena get lucky in some respect? let's say, Brock Lesnar doesn't leave WWE in 2004. With Lesnar still being there, would Cena being the big name that he is, would he have still had that big run? Would he have still had that big impact like he had? Like, that was certainly a game changer. It changed things for sure, you know what I mean? There probably wouldn't have been a JBL if there wasn't Brock Lesnar, that's one thing, but JBL and John Cena, it's a totally, different conversation. But give JBL his credit, he was a great heel. He was great for helping Cena get over, even bigger, more than he was, you know what I mean? So JBL played his part with that and being the guy to put over Cena for the championship. But Cena's impact overall, man, I mean, I'm an Attitude Era guy, I was a Rock guy, but there's no doubt, though, that Cena, for what he did for WWE, what he did for the company, the impact he had with kids and just the fans over the world, all over the world in WWE, I wasn't a huge fan of the Cena era, but no doubt he's going to go down as one of the greats. I don't think he's going to be seen as the greatest. I don't know if it's entirely fair to say he's overrated, but he's definitely going to be down as one of the greats. You can put him in that conversation, you can put Roman Reigns in that conversation, but no doubt John Cena will go down as one of the greatest stars in the wrestling business. Whether you like the gimmick, the Super Cena gimmick, whether you didn't like it, he was the man for a long period of time. I maybe didn't always like how he operated from things you hear of maybe talent he buried and people you put down. But Cena stepped up when it counted. And Cena had some excellent matches, some very memorable promos. He delivered, and he was a character. He was a very enjoyable character for a period of time anyway. And even I think he put in some good work as a heel. I bought into him as a heel with this heel run recently. It's just a shame that they didn't know what to do with it, and then they just canned it. But when it comes to Cena, he's definitely in the question. When people talk about who are the greatest are, Cena definitely is up there, no doubt. Not the greatest, but definitely one of the greatest superstars, for sure. And those are my thoughts, guys, but please let me know what you think. Feel free to hit the subscribe button and leave a comment. Let me know, were you a John Cena guy? Were you not a fan of John Cena? Were you a John Cena hater? Leave a comment, let me know what you think. But you're curious of some of what my more thoughts are about maybe John Cena and how he's been over the years. If you want to click on this video that I've done previously about what happened there with John Cena and Alex Riley, if you click on the top left there, you can check out that video and see what more thoughts that I have on maybe who the real John Cena is. But that is me for now, guys. Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye.